What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a look at Zoria, the Age of Shattering, which is an upcoming squad-based tactical RPG where we will be leading a team of 4 in turn-based tactical battles. So I've been keeping an eye on Zoria for a little while, as it was recently undergoing a Kickstarter campaign that has since concluded. However, I personally don't like to promote Kickstarter campaigns, given the rather volatile nature of whether or not they even get funded, and then subsequently whether or not they actually get released. That said though, I do enjoy Kickstarter, I do back things pretty regularly, and some of my favorite games are the result of Kickstarter campaigns, though in general I tend to hold off on promoting any sort of Kickstarter campaign. Now in the case of Zoria here, that is in large part because while they had a demo available, I was left with more questions than answers, because what the description of the game is going to be isn't necessarily what we see in the demo. The demo is rather a slice of mechanics and things just to give you a gist of the game, and while it certainly does give you an idea of the gameplay, I didn't necessarily see enough of the systems to make myself confident one way or the other, so I'm pretty on the fence about it. Though that said, there is a demo out right now. If you want to check it out, you can go to their Steam page, which I might link below if I remember, which is of course where the footage that you're seeing on screen is from, because while I'm not sold 100% on it yet, I do think it's looking pretty good and could shape up into something that is very good. Now, a little bit of background on the Kickstarter as well, actually. According to the Kickstarter, the game is mostly done, and the Kickstarter was specifically to fund extra things that they would like to add, as this is a pretty ambitious undertaking for an indie studio. Though they do have a publisher via Anshar Publishing, who developed and published Game Deck, actually, which is a narrative RPG that I enjoyed a great deal. Though, from the Kickstarter, I couldn't glean exactly what things they were hoping to add from the Kickstarter specifically. But with all that said, let's start talking about the demo and the things we can see. Now, in terms of the raw gameplay, I would say it plays in a manner somewhat similar to Divinity Original Sin, at least in terms of running around and the actual combat, as what we saw in the demo was fairly linear, though it's my understanding that with the actual story of the game, they're hoping to add things that are more dynamic and open to options. Though, frankly, just from what I've seen here, I wouldn't expect anything over the top in that regard, as they have advertised this as a tactical RPG rather than something with a heavy emphasis on choices and consequence. Now, we will be leading a squad of people, 4 to be specific, and there are several classes that each member of those squads can be. Each one of them, of course, capable of doing and providing different roles with their own upgrade trees and the like. That said, though, I did not personally see any sort of companion-esque characters, but rather just more mercenary-like groups where you could bring on someone who is just kind of a body, and then they have a specific role that they fill in your party, which would be, again, the standard for a typical TRPG, which tends to lean that direction. Now, taking those characters into combat is a pretty decent experience. We don't see any grid-based systems or anything like that. Again, much like Original Sin, where it's relatively free-form in where you move, with abilities that have ranges, and as long as you're in range, you can attack the enemy, etc. Most of your characters have 2 action points, so they can either attack twice or perform some other action twice, or they can move and take an action, which is a fairly standard way of approaching tactical RPGs. And in addition to this, they also have a flanking system that will give you side attacks as well as a backstab critical system, along with each character having a variety of abilities that can affect the battlefield in various ways, give your characters buffs, enemies debuffs, and of course, tactically using all of those things is really what you're going for, though the exact level of, say, environment interactivity as well as systems like magic interacting with each other via various elements I've yet to see personally, which is again one of the reasons I'm on the fence about the title myself. In addition to just that though, the demo does have a lot of other mechanics on display as well, such as a pretty robust crafting system where you can of course cook meals, craft armor, craft potions, the usual stuff. This tends to function off of a recipe system where you have to learn how to make something and then have the appropriate materials as well as a kit required to craft an item. There's also a rest system where you can actually perform many of these activities out in the open, as well as heal your characters up, and some classes can actually even remove specific debuffs, that kind of thing. While you're out exploring the world, you can run into various obstacles that only certain classes can clear, which I thought was an interesting touch. And while I didn't really see it in the demo as much, there is supposed to be a larger outpost system where you can expand and upgrade said outpost to give you various access to other parts of the game, as well as other systems. And it will be, of course, where you are sort of leading your troops from, which is, again, fairly standard stuff for a TRPG. Now, that's more or less what I have to say on the demo, and overall, I would say you guys probably get the idea from all of this. In general, it's something I certainly have my eye on, though I really need to see the whole picture before I make much of a conclusion one way or the other. Because on one hand, what I played was relatively fun, seems like it's in a good place, which tends to line up with what they said about this being released one way or the other, and with Kickstarter just adding things. On the other hand, I don't know what things they are hoping to add from that Kickstarter. I also don't have much to say about the actual story, as it's apparently supposed to be between two warring factions, which is the usual, and none of the characters have really stood out to me at this point. In fact, I don't really have a main character to even point you to. So as you can see, I just have a lot of questions, though the core of the idea here seems solid enough, as mixing the general gameplay of something like the original Sin series with a TRPG in this manner seems to work pretty well. The combat is open and fluid as well. You just walk and then you're in combat once you see enemies, which can allow you to set things up. But the overall quality of the experience we have yet to see. But nonetheless, it's something people have been asking me about and something I wanted to talk about as well. So here we are. Now, with all of that said, that's pretty much all I've got for you guys, so I certainly hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.